Hello, and welcome to the Expanded Woman podcast, where we talk about all things spiritual, personal, and business development. I have a guest on today. Her name is McKenna Burgess. She is a tantric shamanic priestess, embodiment coach, and clinically certified sexologist dedicated to guiding others back home through to their bodies through sacred practices, somatic healing, and deep inner work. All right. Welcome, McKenna. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast here today. If you want to just kind of tell the guests a little bit about where your journey started with your work and how it kind of developed for you over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited to connect. So, first of all, thank you. And yeah, originally, my journey probably started about 8 years ago when I became a massage therapist. Um, I was kind of pushed into massage therapy and was like, I'm not sure if this is for me, but I knew I didn't want to go to traditional like 4 year school. I was definitely already off the beaten path, if you will. Finished high school early, and so I was kind of waiting to go to massage school. And in that kind of waiting period, I started to enter into yoga a lot more. And so at age 17, I got into yoga pretty intensely. I had been doing it a couple years before just because my sister, but really started to take on my own practice. And then going through massage school, I realized how disconnected with the body I was. And that made me just kind of get super curious about the body and just super curious about myself in general. And probably 5 years after massage school, I didn't really do a ton. I was just kind of doing yoga and getting more into my own personal ceremonial practices, but I didn't really think much of it. And then 3 years ago, I trained with a tantrika for the first time. And I really kind of elevated the path a lot more, I would say. It threw me into Tantra and somatics and really allowed kind of that union of the mind, body, and spirit to begin to happen. I was starting to have that focus from yoga in my mind and was working with the bodies often through massage, but I wasn't really having that like soul come through, if you will, until yeah, I actually went to my first Tantra training kind of by accident. I was a massage therapist and she was like, "You'll be great for this." I was not 100% sure. I was like, maybe she's just selling me her training, she's just doing her job. And I went into this 2 week fully immersed experience and I walked out of it and completely changed my whole massage practice and I haven't looked back since. And it's really just been a continuous journey from there. The last 3 years, even just learning more and more modalities for somatics and different ways to kind of connect others to themselves. And so that kind of put me on the sexologist path. Um, with Tantra, I started letting go a lot of shame and guilt and releasing some sexual trauma, and that really put me on a curious path again. And so that put me into going and getting certified as a sexologist, and that's kind of where I am now. I've just been kind of trying to sew all the modalities together, if you will, and kind of begin to share it with others now.
I love that. I'm kind of curious to hear a little bit more about the Tantra and how that connected to your massage therapy, because I'm sure other people are going to be curious about that too. So if you could kind of explain a little bit more of like maybe how they're similar and how that helped with your massage therapy practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So just being a massage therapist, I already had like a lot of knowledge of the body. And then when we went through Tantra training, I didn't really have to go through that like massage understanding the body portion. It was more of like the energetic portion learning for me. So I learned like how to read chakras and do Reiki and things like that. Um, but really massage connects to it just because Tantra, the core principles are breath, sound, movement, energy, and intention. So even through massage, we're doing physical movement with the body. And so we're often, I would say a majority of my tantric ceremonies are tantric massage ceremonies. And we use those core principles as people are on the table to really get them connected back into the body. In Tantra, we believe that the deeper we connect with ourselves, the further that we're able to connect with others. And that really begins with the foundation of communicating with our body. And so massage goes just hand in hand with just beginning to gain that communication again.
Yeah, I love that. And I love it when we have more like grounded modality like massage therapy that people already really value and um, are really attracted to because it helps really bridge that gap between that energetic type of healing, like the Tantra that you're talking about. So I love that so much.
Absolutely. It's definitely, I have people all the time that kind of, oh, well, I read that you were a massage therapist, but I see that you also do Tantra, and then kind of ask me, what is that about? And a lot of the times, of course, I give a good explanation, but I always say, like, your own experience will always tell you the most. So I just kind of tell people, come with an open mind and open heart and see what happens while you're on the table. And yeah, oftentimes, if you've gotten a massage before, you probably understand massage brain when you get off the table, just kind of being out of it. Tantra kind of, I feel like with clients, I notice that it kind of takes away that brain fog. When we're working and activating our energy, we're actually just bringing more clarity. So I have clients that hop up off the table and they're super energized and ready for the day. And um, if anything, they're more curious. They like pop up with like 1,000 questions sometimes. And I'm like, okay, your monkey brain's coming in and you should just sit in this energy rather than when I first began my massage and my own massage practice a couple of years ago, like people would wake up and just like get off the table and be like, and so I'd
Yeah,
always have to be like,
disconnected.
yeah, I'd have to be like, okay, payments before, tell you everything before, because once you like hop off the table, you're just way out of it. And so that's where I also really like Tantra is because it kind of again sews that mind body spirit together, and that does happen with regular massage, but we do get that brain fog before that clarity comes.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So are these sessions only are you only able to do these in person or are you able to do them distance without the massage therapy part, I guess?
Yeah, so I do online sessions as well, and even include a lot of like most massage modalities, but I walk clients through that. So I'll just kind of um, find something that's like a more regular point on the body, if you will, rather than being like my massage brain of like find this muscle and bone.
Hmm.
But kind of like find your collarbone and then we'll scoot over a couple inches and then we'll start to rub these different areas and points. And so even with distance, I still am able to introduce massage and touch for you. And then, like I said, so breath, sound, and movement are the best ways to move energy. And then those three beginning tantric principles, and then energy and intention. So I often do kind of with distance more of like lots of breath work and sound healing as I guide in inner journeys. Um, and then lots of soul retrieval, I would say, when I'm working on more of like online distance, which soul retrieval is kind of, if you've ever heard of internal family systems,
Hmm.
it's a really similar version of that, which we just start to use all of our inner aspects and then using a little bit more of those somatic tools to in internal family systems, we kind of have like those core parts, if you will. And then in this aspects, we kind of take our parts and go even deeper with them, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I'm able to kind of walk people into their own safe space and begin to kind of call these parts back to themselves or recognize these parts within themselves. Sometimes people are identifying as they live their life very heavily with an aspect, but they have no idea. And
Mm,
so that's definitely a lot of the work, I would say, especially at the beginning when we're working online, kind of more of that turn in and soul retrieval.
yeah. And so when you're doing like Tantra sounds very much like somatic, is it? Are you
Absolutely.
tracking a lot of like kind of the activation that's going on? Is that kind of how you're guided?
Yes. So some I always get asked like because I have listed on my website, oh, I do somatics and I do tantra, and so people will be like, "Oh, I think I'm interested in both, but what's the difference?" And I'm like, "Well, there isn't a difference, but
Yeah,
we
they're
just
kind of
have
actually the
different names."
same. Yeah. But the
Yeah, we
Tantra,
just
you're
kind of have different
using
names.
breath and movement, like you said, whereas like the somatic modality that I use, and I can't remember if it was the same one as the one you used, just is kind of more of like a guiding into the inner sensation. So it sounds like the Tantra has those extra elements that really help. And same with kundalini. Same thing, movement, breath.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, when we're working with Tantra, that's another kind of core foundation of what we're doing is working to activate the Kundalini. We're working with the Kundalini energy. So that's another reason um, I went a little bit more into that sexology side after Tantra is just because we are working with the Kundalini. So it's not just our life force energy, it's our sex energy. It's the energy that we were created from. So it's creative energy as well. And so that kind of put me down more of that rabbit hole of where I was able to release those like sexual traumas and histories and pasts. Um, but really, somatics is my core foundation of Tantra, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. And then, like you said, we're able to use these other modalities to kind of go in deeper and create a larger, maybe not a larger transformation, but typically when you are using a little bit more of those modalities and intensely for an hour or 2 hours, what it may be, you're definitely bringing profound change within the body.
Yeah, yeah. It's just more tools, really, is what it is. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
and with the IFS that is interfamily system,
Yeah, internal family
internal
systems
family
is
systems. Okay.
yeah.
I did a little bit of that with my therapist a long time ago, and from what I can remember, she was kind of guiding me into my body the same way that I would with somatics. Is that kind of what you do as well? Like the energy that's alive inside is that emotional, like family part?
Yeah, so oftentimes, yeah, we do a very similar thing with somatics of like taking into this safe space, really activate your senses. What do you see in this safe space? Like, where are you?
Hmm.
Anchor our clients in, and then um, it could be something that's alive within you right then. And then, of course, I often have clients that are like, this one part of me on Thursday just wouldn't let it go, things like that. And so then we
Yeah, yeah,
call back
yeah.
in that part that was super active within them recently.
And you
So
find it.
definitely, yeah. And then
Hmm.
kind of pinpoint what does that look like for you? What does it start to feel like? And again, yeah, use those senses to turn things on within the body um, and anchoring yourself in. So really very similar. And like I said, I would say from internal family systems is I typically feel like I ask a little bit more questions. So
Hmm.
sometimes when I talk to other friends that do similar versions of internal family systems and things like that, we'll talk about like some of the questions that we brainstorm always. And one of the things was just like asking of age and things like that, kind of those typical things. But then once you kind of know that part, I hear that kind of what I learned is just like going a little bit deeper. And I think
Yeah.
that's another reason where that like transformation comes from. And of course, with the somatics, just like really rewiring the brain as we're feeling it within our body.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds very similar to what I do as well. I don't call it like the internal family system, but I work with those like parts, often child parts of ourselves and that have been rejected. And what we do is we like integrate them. And it's like you said, like I continue to ask the questions and I don't really hold back on, like age questions or whatever. It's really intuitive, like in that moment for like what comes up for them. So it sounds very
Absolutely.
similar.
I think that's like the difference between kind of coaches and like um talk counseling, if you will,
Hmm.
is that like they went through a lot of schooling and that was great, but it was very structured for them. And I feel like coaches were taught that we have to be intuitive. And so I know from like my own personal clients, they're like, I go to talk therapy. And I feel like now that I've combined this, I'm able to actually get somewhere with my talk therapy. And so it really is
Yes.
just like that much deeper of an addition.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think that like talk therapy has its place, but for a lot of us, the work is really a lot deeper than that for most of us. Some people just need to talk to get it out, but that energy doesn't really get addressed unless we're going into the body, because talk therapy is really, you're really in the mind channel like the whole time pretty much, right? And oftentimes you're reawakening that energy without actually giving it somewhere to go. And so for some people it can actually be quite triggering to go to therapy. And a lot of people I think do go to therapy and have a bad experience and then never go back and kind of ditch the whole healing work because of that.
Absolutely. I would 100% agree with that. Again, yeah, just like speaking with clients, I've had some that just like in our 2 hour intake session, which we do some of this soul retrieval, absolutely, but definitely not as deep as like once we really start getting into it. And they had a more transformational time in that 2 hours than they had in the last 6 months with their talk therapist. And it definitely is so profound and eye-opening to hear that. And um, I was realizing in two other clients in particularly, I didn't realize this until we were doing massage and I was physically touching them and doing Reiki and things like that. But they were going to talk therapy and then everything was literally just in this top layer of fascia of just this trauma. And so any similar thing would be so triggering, and we were like constantly kind of starting to work on it. And then when we had this breakthrough and we started using touch, it was again, yeah, just completely profound. They realized like, oh, I was actually able to let that part of me kind of dissipate, if you will, rather than just sit there. And yeah, one client in particular, he's like, I always walked out more anxious than when I walked in. And I was just like, yes, it's a common thing, unfortunately, just because counselors and talk therapists, they just don't have those extra needed tools, you know? I think it's a great
Mhm.
baseline. And like you said, some people, it works great. They can talk it out, and through voice, that literally leaves their body. The energy can leave their
Yeah.
body. But
Some people, that's how
in
they process energy, like by their, human design. But most people, it's not.
exactly, that's what I was going to say. But a majority of people, it's definitely not like that. And so, yeah, I think you're what I'm seeing more and more, like even in this last year compared to my first 3 years of being in Tantra and beginning of coaching, like there's such a flourish of desire to seek out coaches and to seek new ways because people are just realizing like what we've been doing over and over is not working.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think there's a huge need for there's such a diversity and it's so awesome and it's so needed because I think we all have our biggest struggles and most therapists are very like I don't want to say generic because that almost feels like uh, like undervaluing them, but when you can find somebody who deals with like the exact issues that you're having and sees you, and not only that, but something that came up for me when you were talking to, and I've said this quite a few times, I feel like in my spaces, that there's something about being just witnessed uh during a session that just really doesn't compare to anything else because for probably most of us, we are lacking that being seen, being held, being heard. And when we're going to talk therapy, yes, we're being heard, but in sessions like with you and I, that person is sitting there, like I'm assuming for you as well, with their eyes closed and you're watching them and you're just witnessing them and you're holding that space for them. And that in itself is extremely healing, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. I kind of what I was thinking when you're just saying that is that these counselors and these talk therapists, they go to school and they learn about all these problems and how they can help. But us as coaches, we had these problems. So now
Exactly.
we're showing up in the space and we're actually able to relate and like can find that medium, if you will. And I often meet counselors so many times too that are not doing the work, but I
Yeah.
don't meet as many coaches that aren't doing the work.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes to show too, just like the way we're able to authentically show up. And it is just like a much more rigid state for them. And so it causes that reflection back in their work.
Totally. Yeah. I actually started going to school for psychology and I took one class and I was like, something's missing. And then that's when I found somatics. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like thank God because I'm a big feeler, right? And I don't like being in that like that rigidity. Like when I have sessions with
Yep.
people and they're going through a really big experience, I oftentimes cry a little bit with them. I'm not sobbing
Right.
along with them, but I'll have a couple of tears fall. Like I'm there holding space and I'm feeling everything in my body as well. So, and I love that.
Yeah.
And I think clients love it too because you're real, you know?
Absolutely. I was just gonna say like the relatableness, like yeah, when you think of going into talk therapy, like yeah, for sure, there's a lot of anxiety about it. Like, what am I gonna show up to talk about today? And I have some clients that show up and they're like, I don't really know what we're gonna work on or this, and that, but I knew that I just needed to come still. And I'm like, well, that's what we're here for. Like, your body is gonna tell us. Like, we're gonna lead the
Yeah.
way, and
Yeah.
then we end up having like yeah much more profound experiences when they didn't show up with anything
With
like
an
there.
expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's also another thing, like also we live well personally living in like the United States, like we live in a society that it's so common of like a one-time fix, right? So when we think of going to talk therapy, like
Yes.
I have a lot of people that are like, oh, it didn't work, but then they're a little bit more open to experience, and so they'll come back for like coaching or like whatever kind of experience may be set up for these somatic ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And even I think sometimes, especially during the beginning when I first started doing this, I would get anxiety and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I have to make sure they have like a profound experience so they come back. Which, really oftentimes with somatics, they do, but
Yeah.
you really have to remember that sometimes people aren't don't have the capacity to experience something profound in that moment and what they need is to just uh like be held or to learn how to feel good for an hour and not actually dig into anything at all.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of another reason that like I enjoy Tantra, like being and coaching on that side because yeah, a lot of the times like I'm just here to create an experience and then typically something comes up and then we can kind of work on it and like yeah, when you come with no expectations, I'm able to kind of use these heavier modalities before something arrives. And if nothing does arrive, then you still have like a lot of change that happens. And like you just mentioned, oftentimes like our clients aren't ready for change. Their bodies are physically not ready. And so that's like something that's really nice about Tantra is that we can literally do breath work before getting into anything and begin to tell the nervous system like it's okay
Yeah.
and it's okay if things come up and things like that. And so being able to put it into that space of safety before anything has been also very total, makes a total difference.
I 100% agree. That's something that I do mentorship with the somatic group that I took my training with, and that's one of the biggest things that I always tell my mentorees or whatever you would call them. You make sure at the beginning of the session that you spend as much time as needed until you start to watch their body soften and their voice change. Because I don't really think we have any business going in and dealing with stuff unless we are feeling safe. And I think that if we are digging in when we're not feeling safe, it's not really going to be long lasting and it's not going to be um, very therapeutic.
Absolutely not. If anything, yeah, more triggering or yeah, you're just gonna come where you're just meeting walls, you know, you're constantly just
Hmm.
meeting that next wall with them.
Yeah, because I feel like to me when like when I was taught in somatics, we titrate between the blues and the reds are edgy and the blues are what feels good. And to me, I actually feel like once you've created that safety, that the reds in quotations are not really that uncomfortable. They might be a little bit edgy, but it feels totally safe and okay to go in and explore those.
Absolutely. I love the way you kind of said that, like red, if you will. Oftentimes I have clients that like I'll say, okay, this kind of goes into that shadow side. We're doing a little bit of shadow work. And at the end of it, they're like, well, that didn't feel so bad. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
it's not that
funny. Like
scary.
we have this word and like, oh, shadow work and make it seem dark. But then like once we bring things to light, it doesn't feel all that bad. You realize, you know, it wasn't as large as our brain makes it out to be.
Yeah, it's really it's like the easiest shadow work you can do, really, honestly. It
Absolutely.
makes it easy and it makes it like an enjoyable experience, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I definitely have clients that like I sometimes the work is more profound than they were expecting. And so I actually had a client recently I hadn't talked to in over a year and they're like, okay, I'm ready to start trying again. But they just had a really hard time. Like sometimes when we start to look at ourselves in the mirror, then we realize like it's not all that pretty. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, when we start to think about the work that has to be put in, our brain will literally just like make up of every excuse that it can just so that we can be more comfortable because in our head, like that short discomfort
Mm-hmm.
seems so intense and so painful, but really like, yeah, just living inauthentically
Yeah,
and like having that like lower vibration over time is just that much more detrimental, you know?
totally. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I feel like that can be really difficult. It's like I've had clients that actually weren't able to the blues which are supposed to be pleasant experiences were not pleasant for them because feeling anything was just not safe. And so some people, are just have learned that any sensation, any feelings are not good, not safe. And so the healing journey can be a little bit more slow and have to be a little bit more gentle. But I also do believe as well, and I'm not saying, there's certain ways to do this, of course, like I don't want to say that it's healthy to ignore your healing if you know you need to deal with stuff, but sometimes you need to take a step away and then come back to it when you're feeling a little more safe or a little bit more grounded, right?
Absolutely, you know, there's definitely a time in place, for everything. And I definitely have had those people that are like, no, I want more and more and more and more and more, thinking like intensity is the best thing. But yeah, just like having to reteach them that kind of flow and ease actually brings like the most profound things for you. When we're kind of creating that restriction or constriction, then we're
Yeah.
just kind of forcing that healing, and it's really not that authentic. We're just putting more things on the back burner. We're just like quickly solving something here, and then something else is showing up here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that we learned in our somatic training was you can't, there needs to be like that duality. You can't, purge and release this uncomfortable, painful situation without now replacing it with a more positive experience in its place to like kind of heal that wound. And I think that especially people who are like chronic self-help healers and all that, they just want to like they're like, okay, they got their shovel and they show up and they're like, let's do this. Like, come on, and you're like, whoa,
Yes.
whoa, whoa. Oh, well. So
No,
yeah.
absolutely. Those are kind of the people too that I have to like remind, like, we can't feel all this light and this greatness, this ecstasy, this bliss, and this happiness without being in the trenches, without sitting in our own darkness, without really understanding um, those not so pretty sides of ourselves as well, you know? So
Yeah.
I definitely, at the beginning, like at age 17, really getting into yoga right before massage school, I was that like addicted to self-help person, and like
I've been that person
yoga
too. Yeah.
yoga was not about like the focus, the concentration, and the connection. It was just like about like, I guess, focus, but like how far could I push my body? Like, oh, can I do
Totally.
this?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that Tantra really changed that for me, allowed me to like be in that more embodied state for sure. But it's definitely something that is very common of people start that self-help, and that it feels good. It's like hard to want to stop sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It feels it's enjoyable. And then I think there's also that other side where it kind of can turn into like an addiction as well, People like
Uh,
I've seen people be like, okay, like I've got all these negative beliefs that I got to start picking them off one by one. And it's like, well, that's not really how it works. You know, you're working with
Absolutely.
your conscious mind right now, and it's just not how it works. Like you're never gonna be healed, again in quotations, if you're picking things off one by one. Like that's not real healing.
No, definitely not. That was like, yeah, I resonate with that at my beginning, like the beginning
Mm-hmm.
of my journey.
Mm-hmm.
Just like,
It can get like that.
oh, well,
Sometimes we
this
get
is done.
lost.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, I think being so young too, like it made me be like, I started like having people recognize like, oh wow, you're so different in this way and things like that. And so like that also amplified it for me. It was like, oh, people are seeing better change in me. Like I have to keep going kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, the last few years it has been a learning of like how to actually rest, because I did not know how to
Mm-hmm.
do that. And even sometimes now, as I'm like writing out my schedule, I'm like, okay, that workaholic in me is coming out. Never mind. Let's erase this. Let's erase this.
Yeah. Yeah, as projectors, you're a projector too, right? We need like
Yeah,
extra rest compared to most people too. And it's so nice to know that now. Like I remember in the past working a normal Monday to Friday job where I worked a lot of overtime or even weekends sometimes, and I was like, what's wrong with me? I feel like I'm dying.
absolutely. Yeah. I was very lucky and blessed. I worked food before I got into massage, but I got into massage by 18. And so, um, yeah, there was like when I first got my first massage job, I was like, I will never work a double again. That is not a thing.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So I'm wondering, like, would you say your intuition kind of developed over time as you started to kind of work with these modalities, or were you always an intuitive person?
I would say that I was definitely like always an intuitive person. So I'm a Pisces, and
Hmm.
at age 16, I really started to get into like my Wiccan craft. And so a lot of these modalities also go into that. Like I'm work like using different like breath works and things like that. And
Yeah.
what's funny is like as I learned somatics, I learned like what I was doing with lighting a candle was actually like changing me inside internally and like rewiring my brain. And so I realized like I was kind of already on this path. I just didn't have like very good direction, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. So the intuition was there. I just like didn't really know what to be using it on. Like it would be on the most random things. And so it just
Yeah.
didn't feel like um I guess I didn't notice the benefits of it, but definitely as I've continued to like work with these modalities, it's just like honed in my skills more and more. Um,
Yeah.
and I think when like started working with Reiki, I started realizing how intuitive I was and
Yeah.
just like, oh, I like before even touching you or anything like that, like how much I could like see or read on a person already. And um I would definitely say like, yeah, the intuition was there. It just needed a little bit of training.
Yeah. So like every stepping stone, I guess you could say, kind of woke it up a little bit more for you.
Absolutely. And I would say like even now I'm just continuously like almost shocked sometimes. I'm like, wow, I did that. I called that out. I knew that was gonna happen. Things like that, you know, like
Yeah.
um and of course, I think even like with these modalities, like it comes and goes in waves sometimes. Like sometimes I'm just on my game, on my point, and sometimes I'm like, I just can't make a connection to save my life right now.
Totally. Yeah. I love that you brought that up because I don't think that people really talk about that a lot. And sometimes I think that it's the people that we're working with as well. I feel like when I'm more connected to them and when they're more open to it, there tends to be more flow. Do you feel the same?
Absolutely. And I would say that like people that have a hard time and like really want that connection with that intuition, it's because they're like overly focused on it a lot of the times. Like when
Yeah.
I do get asked questions on like maybe not on directly of like how to like awaken my intuition more, but just how to deepen their practice to be
Mm-hmm.
more aware. And I just always like tell them like keep practicing and like quit trying to zoom in on what you need to hear from your experience and just allow your
Yeah.
experience to tell you whatever happens.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times, yeah, we start to get those expectations in our heads of like, oh, why didn't that come to me so quickly? Or like, why didn't I just second guess that already? And so that definitely, I think, plays a part in it where we interrupt our monkey mind, our monkey brain just like
Yes.
interrupts it. And then we have
That
that disconnection.
self-judgment, self-doubt. And I think that
Absolutely.
seeing other people as well and being like, "Oh, I wish I had that," like gift kind of thing or whatever. And one thing I've kind of been talking about a lot the last little bit, especially the last couple of days, is like I think a lot of people are so focused on waking up their gifts in terms of like, oh, I want to be more intuitive or I want to be like wake up my clairs more. I want to be clairvoyant. But when it comes down to it, your gift is really what you're doing with your work. that intuitive piece or all those other pieces, they just develop on their own without really, putting that focus on them. And I feel like the more we release and let it go, the more they start to wake up because it's like you said, you're zoned in on it and you're clinging basically. You're not surrendering into your process. And I think that people get really lost on that and so focused on that that's what their gift has to be, where maybe your gift is just being really great at holding space for people while while you're working through all the modalities that you know.
Absolutely. And I, on the coaching side, sometimes I'll have clients that just don't know what they want to do with their career, but they're so focused on what they do want to do, they aren't actually listening to like what they like want to come into fruition, if that makes sense. So they're just like, I know that I don't want to do this, but they're so focused on that like even the actions that they're taking away from whatever this is aren't being shown to them because they could just like can't get their eyes off of like what they don't want even too.
Yeah, yeah, totally. If you're so busy watching what you don't want, you're never going to be taking those steps to
See,
move forward.
absolutely, or just like see the opportunities as they're happening for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like that. It's like tunnel vision, really, essentially. And in this case, like in the wrong direction. Um, and I really feel like it always comes back to learning how to surrender. Because, like I said, I've been saying a lot the last couple of days. We evolve and change and grow so much. And that's like, you're a testimony to that during your whole experience of learning all these different modalities. You were like, okay, like here's massage therapy, and oh, there's something kind of missing here actually. So, okay, here's Tantra, and oh, well, actually, there's something maybe a little bit missing, or this looks interesting, and here's the next piece, And you're not doing it to search for that next thing that's going to make you be the perfect healer or coach or whatever. You're just following your heart, basically, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like what I would say for me is like I feel extremely lucky of why I share these modalities. I'm currently like becoming an herbalist right now, and it's like I am doing that because like plant medicine and herbs put me also on a healing path. And when I
Hmm.
had all these modalities and I was doing yoga, I was doing breath work, I was doing movement, I was working with my kundalini, there were some things that just didn't provide like the healing space that I needed that like after a tea ceremony I did have the safety for and things like that. And so I absolutely like I share all of these modalities because they were part of my own journey. Like that's what I needed to heal. And so the healing is not linear and it doesn't take one modality. And so I definitely think as I will continue to heal in the next 30 years, I'm sure that I'll gain a lot more modalities. And my coaching style in 5 years will probably look a lot different than what it is now, or just at least be a lot more even inclusive in other things.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think that's really how we walk this path too. It's like um, like it started with self-help and then you're like, hey, well, I need something a little deeper and then maybe you go to therapy and again, you feel like that helps, but it's not quite the ticket. So then you find the next thing and you're like, oh, this really helps. And then, oh, well, this really actually supports that. And it's really just it's a beautiful journey, honestly.
And like
It's
you said,
awesome.
follow your heart.
Yeah.
Like that's really what I did. I had no idea what I wanted to do whenever I got out of high school, and I ended up meeting the massage director just like as I was like in that limbo period. And same thing with like my first tantra practitioners. Like I started to feel in a limbo period of just like, okay, yeah, there's definitely more to this than just the body. And um, I'm trauma certified and things like that in massage. But it's so interesting how being trauma certified in different modalities, it is all the same thing, but they are applied in such different ways. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, like once I started getting, I guess maybe not like applied in similar ways, but in more ways, I guess is more
Yeah.
of what. And so, yeah, I think it's just a different kind of journey for sure that
Yeah.
I was super like blessed with and able to kind of share and give back of like those differences. Like again, my journey took a lot of modalities and so will a
Yeah.
lot of other people's.
And when it comes to the trauma-informed stuff, what kind of like what stood out to you the most about like the differences? Was it like surprising the differences or like what kind of
I guess it's
brought
just
that
like
to life?
the spaces, like the spaces that you'll be trauma informed in, like, and I guess the communication of it all. Being trauma informed as a like certified sexologist, I'm able to go like much deeper, but trauma informed as a massage therapist, it was like the extent of like I'm able to literally hold space for you, but pretty much in silence, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then like similar with trauma informed in yoga, like very minimal communication back, if that makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
now being a certified sexologist, being trauma informed, like it's much more profound because I'm able to have that much more open communication back and forth.
You feel
And
comfortable to
then,
ask questions, like you know what kind of questions you can ask, kind of thing.
yeah, rather than just like I have to be silent and like when I was doing it with massage, it would be like, okay, I'm just gonna put you in this very nice space of Reiki and healing around you if you're open to it, but I'm not even gonna ask you. I'm just gonna ask the universe to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, yeah, like continuously as I've gotten deeper into my journey, it's like levels of trauma informed. It's very interesting how they just like apply in different ways.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There are times where, you do just need to sit in silence, but um, nobody likes to be left in silence forever.
Absolutely, definitely. And I would say that the emotions that were coming up in these experiences are all very different too,
Yeah.
in a sense of, yeah, with massage, it could be very deeply profound experience and felt emotion. Um, but it's usually like worked through a little bit differently rather than when someone has a trauma experience when I'm in a coaching session or even a tantric massage. Like my open communication is much different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I'm like I have trauma training with my somatic training, but I wouldn't say that like I wouldn't feel comfortable, dealing with somebody who had like extreme PTSD. Um at least not like advertising for it, right? Like it always comes down to the same things. Like you have to make people feel safe. But of course, that's definitely like its own specialty, especially when it comes to sexual abuse and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I can understand, I guess, where you're saying like previously before, I just didn't, I was trauma informed and I know how to hold space. But yeah, like actually pushing to go deeper into that space with them and create more safety on like whatever they're feeling. I definitely didn't have that confidence, but continuing
It's
through
really a
this like unique.
confidence. Really what it comes down to is a confidence thing more than I would say like education. I think the education sometimes gives us the confidence, right? But really what it comes down to is you making sure that person feels safe to work through whatever is coming up, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of like what I realized when, and I almost said this earlier when we are talking about intuition, is like a lot of going through this training, you realize like you have this knowledge already.
Hmm.
These are more of like just activation trainings.
It's
And
like
then we
remembering.
put, yeah, it's a lot of what it's about. And we just like put all this education behind it, which is great. And I think for me personally, I have like this good student in me, and I needed that, I needed that like portion to be like, okay, this works already, so I'm gonna do it just to have that confirmation. But really, a lot of it is, yeah, leading with your intuition. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you, being trauma informed is really about sitting and holding space with your intuition. Like, how do they need it? And oftentimes, like, they don't know how to communicate that. So you do have to kind of like have that intuition to like get you towards the right direction, hopefully.
For sure, yeah. I think that a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to like for beginners, we always say, like just say what you see. Like notice what you're seeing and call it out, and just and that will lead you to the next question, the next question, the next question, without it having to be so structured. Like literally watch them, like, oh, their shoulder just went up. Oh, they took a big breath. Like every single thing is a cue to what's going on. So you're really
Absolutely.
just kind of relaxing into it and you're putting your attention out instead of worrying about like what you're feeling, you're fully just focused on the other person.
Absolutely. And when we, like, in one of my trainings, we learn to like, we are on this journey with them. So like sometimes I will open my eyes and like body scan and read, but I'm also in their safe space. I'm feeling what
Yeah.
they're feeling because that helps me that much more to understand like what they need to be asked so that they can be heard correctly.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Um, and so I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your sexology training and your work with that because I'm sure people are probably dying to know. They're like, "Oh, sexology, like let's hear about that." Everybody wants to hear about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's like really interesting. A lot of like that training was like a marriage of my previous trainings, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my like instructor, I love her to death. She always says that we are marrying the science and magic of sex. And I really truly do believe that. We kind of bring the aspects of what's going on in the body and then use that energetic magic, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of marry them together. So a lot of the times I'm working with clients, working with their kundalini, just working to kind of activate it, connect with it. Eventually, maybe doing some partner work if they have a partner at home and things like that. Um, but also a lot of that sexology side is going into those parts and those systems. I
Mm-hmm.
have clients that come because maybe they're not performing like they would like to sexually, or they're not experiencing pleasure like they used to or they have before. And a lot of what we do is literally everything that we kind of been talking about. We do Tantra and Somatics to really get into the body and understand what's going on, um, gain that communication so that you can understand what it is that you want. And I would say a lot of it also is not learning just communication with the body and the self, but literally learning how to communicate. Um, I, it's even myself, I mean, it's been quite a few years since I've like began this training. So sometimes I think I might be naive of like maybe I wasn't that active of a listener, but just doing like some active listening, different like engagements and things like that. It's very interesting to realize how much of a society we are disconnected and don't know how to communicate or talk to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And
Especially when it
so much
comes
of
to
like,
sexual stuff because it's like we're scared to like offend our partners by telling them like what they're doing isn't like doesn't feel good, especially if they've been doing that the whole time you've been together. you know?
Absolutely. Yes. So a lot of it is like learning how to embody your communication. Like you just said too, like it's so common of like we are people pleasers. Like
Yes.
I don't care who you are, you got that small, even if it's just small, that
Everyone
aspect that
has it to
wants to
some
be a
extent. Yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, it kills relationships. We end up getting clients in partnerships. I'll work with couples, and so I'll do like separate intakes. And basically, what they're saying is that they want the same exact thing, but they don't know how to deliver it to each other. So it causes like miscommunications and just causes a lot of dis-ease in the relationship, if you will. And so, yeah, like learning to know what your body feels like is a lot of what we start with, just so that when you start to communicate, all these alarms going off in your body, you can either settle them or you can be like, oh, something's not right here. Listen to kind of that alarm in the body and then continue with I work with like, it's called nonviolent communication.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that is active listening as well. And yeah, so we're learning to kind of understand what these alarms are in our body so that when we're in these conversations, um, we're not letting them overrun us. So sometimes we're scared, and so a lot of alarms go off, and we're like, we're not even going to have that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it has to do with anything of intimacy or sex or anything like that. Um, as well as kind of, I work with attachment styles often in that sexology side. So when we're in that fearful avoidance, we can start to recognize these parts that are kind of pushing away our partner without us like, of course, it's all unintentional, but the more that we're understanding and communicating what our body is feeling, then we're understanding like, oh, I just made this choice because this old part of me would feel safer. And then we can kind of interrupt that and change that.
So you're teaching them
A lot of,
basically, sorry, finish. Sorry,
yeah, go
finish.
ahead.
So you're teaching them basically to have that awareness to follow that activation in their body that's happening when they're talking to their partner and to kind of like be like, oh, okay, well that's coming from this and they can kind of sit with it instead of letting it derail the whole conversation kind of thing and having them shut down.
Absolutely. Or just like recognizing that that part maybe needs space and then clarifying like how much space and time that that's needed. Just, yeah, again, learning kind of those communication parts. And a lot of the homework that I give is going and having like um, old conversations with friends because we have a lot of feelings and emotions that come up with like past things. One of like my favorite recommendations is go into your contact list and just scroll and just stop whenever and then go call that person. And it ends up, yeah, so it ends up moving through a lot of different emotions for you. But um, then like oftentimes I just have like clients like journal about it and then they recognize all the different parts that kind of come up in that experience.
I'm
But
like
they're
getting
able to recognize
anxiety thinking about doing that. I'm just like,
this is honestly, I haven't recommended it in a really long time. I always say like to start with, I always say just like go go analyze your current conversations without like saying anything. And then I always say like, oh, if you get a coffee once a week, then like go spark up a different kind of conversation with your barista and just like ask
yeah,
them a
you're getting out of
question
your comfort
and
zone
then
a little
you'll
bit.
yeah, and then you'll start to realize kind of like first of all, if it goes bad, whatever, you don't really know that person. So it's like not the biggest deal. But you're also getting to exercise like how to actually listen to someone. And I also like it because like I get client feedback of like that other person like they didn't expect that kind of a conversation. And so it ends up being like kind of like a ricochet effect of like just
Something unexpected.
embodying, yeah, embodying better communication and connection, not just like with the
Mhm.
self, but everyone around.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
when you say active listening, like what do you mean exactly? I know that there's many different kinds of listening, but just refresh me and the listeners, of course, so in case anybody doesn't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're active listening, I mean, typically we're listening and listening to respond, but we're
Hmm.
just like listening with active listening. We're there to listen and hold space for them rather than get whatever we need to say out. Um,
I think everybody knows what that's like. When they're just waiting for the
yeah.
other person to stop talking so that they can say what they want to say.
Yes, exactly. And we oftentimes are just we go on autopilot. And so that is our autopilot. We want to just listen and then respond to whatever and then keep doing whatever. Even if that's
Hmm.
like keep going with the conversation, next point in the conversation. Um, our society is like ingrained in this next step, next step, next step. And so
Hmm.
it transpires even into our conversations. And so when we start to do active listening, you start to really start creating a different kind of connection with that person that you're having a conversation with. Um,
You're listening to
I,
listen.
yeah, I was going to say, I can't tell you how many times that you ask a person, like, oh, how are you doing? And our autopilot is like, oh, I'm doing great.
Hmm.
When someone asks me that, I have told myself like I'm gonna respond how I actually feel now. And just doing that has like created an interruption and you can notice people start to active listen because they're like, "Oh, there wasn't an immediate response back." And
Hmm.
then they kind of have that like they have to think about what I said and then they have that active listen
So it's
participation
like
where
they're
they're like,
fully connected, basically. There's no
"Absolutely.
distractions. It's just they're really listening to see what comes up for them instead of just waiting and yeah, being disconnected. I like that.
I love the way that you just said like distractions. Like we have so many things going off on in our brain at once. And so yeah, like even having a conversation can be so disconnected. Like
Hmm.
yes, we're answering these questions and we're here and we're focused, but like my brain might be over here and 10 steps away.
Totally.
And
And you're
yeah,
picking up
like
your
what I real
phone and yeah.
yeah, and people don't even realize it. And it's definitely sometimes, yeah, it's our subconscious, our monkey brain telling us to like be doing these 10,000 things. But
Yeah. Hmm.
it really is kind of our responsibility to take that step to slow down and really engage in conversation. And um, yeah, it's really funny to be like, some couples will come together and be like, I haven't talked to my partner in years. And I'm like, I totally get it. You
Yeah.
just like you guys have been on autopilot because you've been together for however long and it happens so often.
I think it happens the worst
So
with those people too because they're always there. It's like, well, they're always there. So I can afford to be
exactly.
distracted.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say that with the sexology side, I include a lot of tantra because tantra really includes like slowing down and bringing intention, which brings that value, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so even more than like yes, absolutely. I help others have better sex by all means. But what I do is help them communicate better with themselves, help them understand how to communicate with themselves. Um, on like more of that massage and touch side, I also prescribe like self-touch homework. And that doesn't mean like self-pleasure homework even necessarily, but like to touch your full body without the expectation of like ending of like sexual pleasure. And it's extremely like, I know even from my own like beginning of these personal practices, like realizing how much pleasure I was avoidant to
Yeah.
because I was looking for a certain kind of pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, really redefining pleasure and redefining intimacy and calling back parts that have been pushed away for so long is a lot of what I do on that sexology side. And like I said, I prescribe, if you will, for people to kind of go have open conversations whenever, um,
Mm-hmm.
in these open public senses. And the more that we're practicing these all the time, then when it comes to things in the bedroom, it becomes that much more natural or less
Yeah.
rigid, if you will. I won't
Yeah.
exactly say natural, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes total sense. Like you're getting them out of their comfort zone, so they're feeling more comfortable to talk about things that are uncomfortable.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny just because, like, yeah, it's funny hearing about how our human brain is makes things seem so much worse than they actually are.
Yeah. And one thing that I'm curious about, like, because we mentioned this earlier, how oftentimes people will come in with like this idea of what they want to work through or whatever. And I'm wondering that when people come see you for sex, that if a lot of times their issues will be something other than sex related.
Yeah, so I would say like 99% of the time is pretty much
It's not
anything but
sex.
sex related. Yeah. So that's what's like really funny is like whenever I say I'm a certified sexologist, people are like, oh my God, really? Like you must talk about sex all the time. And I'm like, in my own personal conversations, for sure, it's a hot topic. Don't get me wrong. But in my own like client conversations, it's very funny because yeah, like I would say on more of that sexology side, I work with probably 95% men, 5% women.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's performance things. They just aren't performing the way that they would like. Performance has changed over the years and they'd like to get back, things like that. And yeah, a lot of the times we start to realize like we find where that trauma maybe happened or whatever that created that disconnection that causes that misperformance. And yeah, I mean, it's also really eye-opening to realize how many people are stuck in their heads, even in sexual moments. And that's why somatics comes so handy in this
Yeah.
sexology work because really what I tell them to do is like in moments that they're not performing their best is to begin that breath work, to start to use their different tools to get into the body and then see if they can perform the way that they want or like also knowing that change doesn't happen overnight and it doesn't like you're not always going to have the outcome you want necessarily. And that's another thing I think radical acceptance in all areas of life is something I work really a lot with clients
Hmm.
just because, yeah, we see others or we hear of other stories and we're like, why can't that be me? Why isn't this like, why can't I feel that in my body? And
Hmm.
so and then put us in our monkey brain even more and getting us further and further away from that performance or that pleasure experience.
Yeah, because
So,
that's really what it is, isn't it? It's like you're not able to be in your body in the moment, and that's what's stopping
right.
you from, yeah.
They can't even experience like the exact pleasure in the moment of what's happening just because, yeah, their brain is taking them to like previous moments. And so literally inside of their physical body, they aren't like feeling it. And so, yeah, like simple tips and things like that of like orientating yourself around the room, using your senses, what you see and what you smell and taste right now. Those are like foundational work of even
Mm-hmm.
on that sexology side, not just the somatic tools.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just gonna ask you, like, what would be your top tips for people who are struggling with like sex issues? So, right on cue.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I was gonna say like breath is the most profound thing. Like get into the body, and if you are having a hard time, notice what the air feels like as it goes in your nostrils and either out your nostrils or out your mouth. But I always recommend in through the nose and out the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That's like
It's
definitely
grounding.
something very foundational that we work on. Yeah, that is like the ventral vagal breath, that's the tantric breath, the Taoist breath. There's so many different names for it. And it's so funny because every training I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna write the same breath work. This is a new name for it, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, definitely those are kind of those core foundational pieces, and jumping back into the body is key. And really, like, yeah, finding out how disconnected we are with our body is um and I'll say like I'm guilty too, you know. I have that overworker and overachiever in me, and then I start to disconnect with my physical sensations because my mental drive just goes.
Yeah.
So even having the tools, you know, it doesn't mean that these things don't happen for you.
Oh
It just
yeah.
means that I'm hopefully recognizing it quicker and quicker and able to kind of create that change more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And it's so funny because, yeah, I think probably a lot of people are like thinking that, the whole sexology thing means that um, there's so much talk about sex and all this stuff, like that taboo stuff, but it really is, it really is just kind of similar to anything else, really. You're just working through the stuff that is kind of blocking you from experiencing pleasure, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, like I said, like a lot of it is redefining what pleasure is for a lot of people. They only think of pleasure in the bedroom. And I start to just like take people in just a few seconds and be like, just breathing in the air. Like, how good does that feel in your body? And
Yeah.
like, people are like, actually, now that you say that, like, it is feeling really
Mm-hmm.
good. And yeah, just like beginning to change perspective is definitely a lot of more of that like sexology side. And yes, eventually for sure, like there is that more like nitty gritty into sex things, but it definitely is more of like what you apply every day will eventually kind of turn into a more pleasurable experience in the bedroom.
Yeah. And that just brings us back to, I guess, kind of like the foundation of somatic work too. Like I was saying before, how, people always want to dig into the reds, but experiencing those blues is learning how to redefine pleasure, learning how to access it. And like oftentimes, as you were saying that, like the self-touch and stuff, sometimes I'll have people like rub their arms or their legs and like while they're swaying back and forth and breathing. And I know for me that just like it feels nice. And people just don't realize
Absolutely.
how nice it feels, and it really deepens that experience of just like the simple pleasure of, yeah, feeling good.
Absolutely. I think like a lot of with shifting the perspective is like we work on giving yourself permission to surrender, to
Hmm.
be in the receiving, you know? Oftentimes with being a people pleaser as well, like we feel like we need to be giving or doing something.
Hmm.
And we have gotten completely far away from like what it is to just be a human, which is just being,
Hmm.
and just kind of, yeah, like learning to recognize like when it's restful, like time to rest as well.
Yeah. And I love what you said about like I think you said that the receiving thing and being a people pleaser. I think it like we said, most people are people pleasers. It's a spectrum, But the more of a people pleaser you are, the less you're able to receive. And I find that um, very much a common thing that people struggle to receive. And if you're struggling to receive, then you're gonna get in your head. You're not gonna be able to enjoy whether it like comes to sex or it comes to just life in general. You know what I mean? So learning how to receive is massive. And I think it goes hand in hand with the whole rest thing and the whole just being able to be. Um, it's like these uncomfortable spaces that we were not taught. We were taught that they weren't right. Growing up,
Right.
work, 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 like be busy, do things for other people. So all these things are like not natural to us.
Absolutely. I can definitely agree. Like we, yeah, as a society, we're all here to serve, right? And
Hmm.
so we don't know when it is our time to just like be and receiving. And that definitely, like, I tell clients, one of the things I like will say during a tantric massage ceremony often is, how does it feel to receive right now? Like, how do my hands feel receiving in your body? And just notice, like, if there's restriction or if it's ease. And a lot of people are like, at first, like, it was really hard to sit here on the table, but it's like a lot better now. And it's very, yeah, like very uncomfortable to just be sometimes.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that into this too, because calling something like that out is so validating and it really helps people realize and feel seen, I think, to be like, yeah, actually, it didn't feel good at first, but now it does. Like, thank you for noticing that, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. I think it's so important to, like, help people realize everything that they're experiencing. And sometimes we don't notice unless it's
Absolutely.
called out.
Absolutely. And like even the bad things, like we'll kind of be experiencing it or like quote unquote bad things, right? But we'll
Mm-hmm.
be experiencing it and we'll be like, well, we know that's not right. So we'll just like push it off or like be like, oh no, that wasn't a part of my experience. But then, yeah, when someone is like, oh, did you feel this in your body or did you have this experience? Like we have that relatable aspect and we can kind of be at more ease with ourselves.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Um, yeah. Well, we've been talking for a long time. I feel like we could talk literally. I could talk to you all day. And I feel like every time I connect with somebody in this space, it's like it's a good vibe. I'm calling in those people that are like just right on the same track as me. But I just wanted to ask you a couple questions kind of in closing. And one of them is, uh, what do you have any kind of practices that are like a staple practice for you that you do probably every day, or you make sure that you do it on a pretty regular basis?
Yeah, so for me personally, I do Kundalini yoga, like definitely some portion in some way every day. When we're working with the Kundalini yoga, like we're working with breath, sound, and movement. So I typically do, even if it's just like 2 minutes a day, I'll do like a little bit of breath work and some kind of movement. Um, and then typically kind of sound ends up going into my breath. And so it all ends up getting captured together. But I would just say that like breath, sound, and movement and intention. So just taking even just a few, 3 breaths in through the nose and out the mouth intentionally, it can change your whole day.
100%. Yeah, I can vouch for that. And what are your offerings? Like, are you just doing one-on-ones, or do you have any programs? And do you have anything coming up in the near future? Like, what are you working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do work one-on-ones and then I host events. I'm starting to do some online events. I'll be holding a wound clearing ceremony soon online. I'm not sure the date quite yet. And then I also have a 6 week embodiment program coming up. So we'll kind of merge all of my tools from a little bit of massage, kundalini yoga, tantra, somatics, and a little bit of sexology stuff in a 6 week program to create safety within the self and the body, and then really be confident in embodiment. So, really call
Mm,
back some of those
that
parts
sounds
that,
so amazing.
yeah, some of those parts that maybe haven't been so confident, which happens especially over time. And um, I will also be doing either a 8 week program on Tantra specifically. I'm kind of designing that now. I'm not 100% sure, or just kind of like a 8 week course. But yes, I will definitely be doing a Tantra specific course soon as well. One for singles and individuals, and then I want to do a short course for couples specifically as well.
Ooh, I love that. I've been talking a lot with friends about how there's not a lot for couples really anywhere, inline or in person, online, all the things.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's really important
definitely. Yeah.
work.
Yeah, I will have a couple. I'm in Georgia, near Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm gonna do a couples workshop for massage soon and things like that. So definitely have some events and different things like that. And then I also have like YouTube up that I have like free Kundalini yoga flows, and
Mm.
I'll be adding some more breath work and hopefully some sound bath stuff, learning how to do mics and sound bowls and things like that is a little bit confusing, but
Yeah,
hopefully soon.
awesome. And those courses that you're talking about offering, are those for people who are searching for healing, or is that like something where people can learn how to start doing this work on other people?
So this is more so of doing work for other people or for themselves, but
Mhm.
I plan to do some what I will call priestess trainings, and that'll be teaching mainly other women. I might open to some priest stuff, but um, teaching other women how to share tantra with others. So
Mm,
that is
I
something
love that.
eventually, yeah,
Lots of stuff to look out for.
absolutely. Yes. I'm definitely an ambitious one, so I know that like the priestess training is gonna have to wait 'cause I already have so much, but it's definitely on
Yeah,
it's on the list.
the little worker bee is just getting out of hand. Just wants
Yeah,
to go, go,
exactly.
go. And what is the best place that people can find you? Do you have a website or Instagram or is it YouTube?
Yeah, so I do have a website, and it's just www.mckennaburgess.com. And then on Instagram and YouTube, it's at Tantrika McKenna. I share kind of tips and tricks a few times a week on Instagram, and then I have those different flows on YouTube as well.
Awesome. And I will be asking you for all your links. So for everybody who's listening, I will post all of her links in the show notes below. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. I think that we connected actually over threads, which is right? I think so. Just
Yeah.
pretty
Uh-huh.
awesome. Love that the internet, gives us this opportunity to connect with people like across the world and yeah, I'm super happy that we connected. I feel like we vibe so well together and I love chatting with you. You're so interesting as a person. So thank you so much for coming on the show, McKenna.
Well, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And yeah, no, I definitely feel I could talk with you forever. I definitely love your energy and vibe. So thanks so much for having me. I'm super glad that we were able to connect and work this out.
Yay, awesome. Well, thank you everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode this week, and if you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends. We would love for you to do that.